Welcome to Talking Heads on USA Global TV, starring the one and only wonderful Dr. JACALYN. It's a prestigious place where world-class influencers and experts meet, and where you'll find the most trusted advisors and coaches for all things in life and business. Visit usaglobaltv.com to sign up for our newsletter, get the value you need, and be first in line to learn about events and giveaways and other valuable content. Connect with us. Email Dr. JACALYN at usaglobaltv.com to talk about how you can become part of USA Global TV. That's USA Global TV, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome, or hopefully it's welcome back to USA Global TV and Business Talk Radio. I am Dr. JACALYN KERBECK, and it is a pleasure to have you here today. Our show is Loving Longevity. Today, we are going to explore two-way mentorship, and we're also going to look at the world of women's sports. We have an incredible guest with us today that never in a million years did I think would be on this show with me, and I'm just so excited and thankful to her, and to our co-host, who is a dynamo. She is everything that represents longevity. Her name is Annie Bush, and she is just such a talented woman. She is a brain coach. She's a longevity strategist, and she's here with us now. Let's bring her out.
Hi, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone from wherever across the globe you are joining us from.
So exciting, Annie. I'm so happy to see you. Every Friday, we get to do this show together. And the content that we're sharing with our audience is so important and so relevant to everyone, because people are interested. How can they live a longer life that is a healthier one that's filled with joy? And today we're going to explore a two-way mentorship, which is so important. If you think about mentors you've had in your life, and I think of mentors I've had in my life. But before we get to that and bring in our guests, I'm going to spotlight you. And for people joining us for the first time, would you please share a little bit about your background and why you're so passionate about longevity?
Well, for anyone that's been around for a while, we go through changes in our life and in our careers. And I started out, it's ironic. I started out in college as a journalism major, working at the local radio stations, and then segue into law, and I became an attorney. I worked at the National Park Service for the Department of Interior as their prosecutor, and then became an assistant state attorney here in Florida for about 6 years. And then the change came when both of my parents got cancer, and my father passed. And then when my mom got sick, I saw how the traditional medical community was treating or not treating her, so to speak. I would be taking her over to chemo, and there would be baskets of like candy and cookies, and my head was about to explode because cancer feeds on sugar. And I said, there's got to be a better way. So at that point, I changed my focus to health and wellness and became a personal trainer, a health coach. And then I realized that our whole being centers around our brain health. I saw, parents, I lost my parents to cancer, but I saw parents of clients of mine who were suffering with Alzheimer's and dementia, and it was long and it was lingering. And I said, there's got to be something to be done. So that's when I started looking at holistic treatments for things like cognitive decline. And so that's how I became a cognitive decline, like I'm a brain health coach, focusing on that. And we had a very special guest not too long ago by the name of David Schmidt. And his focus, again, is on these holistic treatments, looking at longevity. He first created what is now referred to as the stem cell activation patch for the military, for the U.S. Navy. And we're going to talk about this patch in more detail later, but there is a crystal center to this patch that activates your own body's natural healing ability by sending light down into your body to stimulate your own stem cells so that you can be younger, healthier, longer. And what David Schmidt said when he was on the program and we talked about it, and that's segueing into today, is what are the societal benefits of living longer, healthier? And one of them is so that we can pass along historical wisdom from one generation to the next. And then a couple of weeks after that, Dr. Stan was on talking about the blue zones, and the blue zones are the areas with the most centenarians, people that live over 100, and what are their keys. And one thing that was common within all these zones was learning from their elders. And we are honored and privileged today to have Dottie Pepper here, who can tell her story of how she was, a very determined 15-year-old girl, and sought out the historical golf wisdom of one Mr. George Pulver, who at the time was 81 years old. So we're going to hear that story and the lessons she learned, not only in golf, but I think in life today.
Brilliant, Annie. Thank you so much. We're not even going to talk to Dottie about our golf game, either one of us, because people don't want to hear about that. Without further ado, let us welcome Dottie Pepper. She's a national broadcaster, 17-time LPGA winner, and trailblazer for women's golf, the lead walking reporter for CBS Sports, PGA Tour, Masters, and PGA Championship. She is also the author of Letters to a Future Champion, My Time with Mr. Pulver. Welcome to the show, Dottie.
Ladies, thank you both. And thanks for bringing me on and just kind of, talking about mentorship and the positive influences we have on our life, trying to be effective longer in our lives. This is all about kind of where I've been over the last few years, and this is gonna be really fun.
It is. So I had watched a few interviews with you up to this to prepare for today, and I think the best place to start is letting people know who was George Pulver and how did he come into your life?
Well, George Pulver was a World War I veteran, born and raised in Saratoga Springs, New York, went to the same high school that I ended up going to, founding member of the Northeastern New York PGA section, and really golfing royalty in upstate New York. He and his wife, Martha, both. At one time, he was a head professional and golf course designer at 3 projects at the same time. Quite convinced that Mr. Pulver didn't sleep much, but he retired in his mid-70s, and by the time I was a junior golfer, adolescent, with my dreams of grandeur, I guess, of playing professional golf, he was retired, but still active. He was still working on the agronomy at a couple of golf courses that he had designed and really had his hands on from right in the dirt around here. And the opportunity came along. My dad couldn't take me any deeper into the game. I needed to reach out to someone. I needed someone else's help to teach me the game. But it turned out to be that it wasn't just teaching me the game. It was really teaching me a lot about everything that goes on with life, and golf just happened to be a part of it.
Thank you. That was a great answer. Very insightful. And today, you, I'm sure, mentor many people just by what you've accomplished. And so many people look up to you and they have the most respect for you. What are some of the things that you learned from your mentor that you can relay and are relaying to other people?
I think Mr. Pulver preached a lot of balance. And, it's very easy as a dreaming ahead young athlete to really look at success or failure in a pretty narrow sort of realm. He never believed that. He thought there was always something positive to take out of every experience. As my dog is being just obnoxious over here. He wants to play. He wants a little balance too. But I think he was tough, but he had a kind delivery, and he also was very self-deprecating and witty. So I think he blended so many positives together that you couldn't help but be really impacted by him in such a positive way. He never talked about himself very much. He never talked about what a good player he was. He never kind of even talked about just what a gifted teacher he was. But he was very proud of his family, the way his kids had pursued education, the way there was always an avenue forward, and just the aura around him was tough but beautiful.
Thank you.
All right. So all that toughness but beautifulness, you have put together in this book. It's amazing. It's Letters to a Future Champion, my time with Mr. Pulver. And I just want to tell you right now, it feels amazing. This cover almost feels like it's leather.
That was part of the journey too, because he loved to read and he loved to write. And if we were going to do this project, I wanted it to be something that he would have been proud to put in his hands.
And so the book is the letters that he wrote to you after each lesson. So can you just describe for us, as this young girl, you know, how did you pick him to be your golf coach? Why did you pick him?
I knew his daughter Madeline, the second of their 3 children. And Madeline was a very good player. She's now in her late 80s, but she early on was actually playing collegiate golf. She was really somebody who broke glass and grass ceilings there, and ended up working in the media world with Gannett Corporation, and was a link to me for so many people that I've continued to stay in touch with, even some really 40 years later. But I was too chicken. I needed help, and I wrote Madeline a letter asking her if she thought her dad would consider taking up the cause of a then 14-year-old kid who had reached out to him to try to find out where to play golf tournaments. But I needed more. I needed a teacher. So I chickened out and I wrote to her, and she said, I'm going to bring this up to my dad. And the timing of it was, it was special. It was difficult because I didn't realize that Mrs. Pulver, his wife Martha, was so ill. And as it turns out, he agreed to start working with me 4 days after she passed. And it was something that the kids, all 3 of them were, as it turns out, very thankful for, because it was just the right regimen for his dad to have a new focus, because Martha was not there any longer. So one of the early letters, he apologizes for not being all in and not being really having his schedule as snug as he would like, his plans not as tight as he would like, probably because his wife had just passed away. But it was magic. There was such respect between the 2 of us, and I was a void. I was able to fill a void for him.
It sounds like you came together at the perfect time for the 2 of you. And you mentioned the word humility, and I'm really thinking to myself, golf really teaches you how to be humble.
Doesn't it? Never say you got it.
and I'm wondering, you know, with everything that you learned from him and your incredible career that you've had as a pro and also as a broadcaster, how has humility really been a thread that's been woven through your whole life?
Oh, we talk about never falling in love with your work as broadcasters, because your next show could be an absolute dud. It was much the same in golf. You're always trying to find that. I think I describe it in the book as sort of it's like the Bell theory. You're trying to find that peak performance area where you're continuing to get better, but you don't push it so far beyond that you actually start to recede. His lessons they're timeless, and they're not just timeless, they're subjectless. They are everywhere. He had such humility. He had such great wisdom. He had such great education, and he had such great curiosity. And I think curiosity, as I've been around successful people throughout my now 40 some years in professional golf or broadcasting, the best people, the most successful people are people that are constantly curious.
I like that. I appreciate that. Thanks for that answer.
It's that curiosity, that continuing to learn, that we always talk about, that stimulation.
That absolutely isn't it. It keeps your brain alive. I mean, if you go through the letters, they were handwritten and hand typed, mostly hand typed by him. Remember, he came back from World War I and he didn't have all of his fingers. As a golf professional, that was a pretty big hurdle to cross there. He did come back with an injury, but he learned how to type and type quite well. But you can see him as the letters evolved from 1980 until 1986 when he passed. You could see that it was still becoming very difficult for him to actually use that standard typewriter, but his brain was still so much alive. Toward the end of our lessons when I was in college, he couldn't see the ball to its apex and finish when it hit the ground. But he could hear, and his brain was so alive that he didn't miss anything.
Oh my gosh, when you think about longevity and overcoming adversity, just what you shared about the fingers, I mean, finding new ways to keep going at a high level. There's so much to be said about that.
Absolutely. You adapt and move on. And that was very much him. You think about, I have a photo the day he shipped out to World War I from the train station here in Saratoga Springs, and he's in the middle of all of these young men. And you figure out a way. You didn't have a choice. You were going, and he came back. I mean, he was gassed in Brussels. He's fought alongside the Brits. He was in France, in Belgium. And he came back with a perspective on the world that he passed along to his children, to his other students, to people that he came in contact with. But I was one of the last ones that was able to really understand and have him pass along that. And it was always about finding a way, being positive, and fighting until the very end.
And Dr. JACALYN, if you could pull up those first two pictures so that the audience that are joining us could see.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites.
I know, it just touches your heart. And so that you can almost, just sense the relationship that you had with him.
Yeah, he always, if you look at the way he's dressed, he's in a sport coat and always had a straw hat on, unless it was a beginning or late part of the season. Then sometimes it was a heavier hat, but he was always dressed. He took these lessons very seriously. He took the opportunity to pass along what he knew very seriously. This was taken in 1984, so I was just getting ready to start my sophomore year at Furman University. It was kind of a final tune-up before I went to school, and we were always tinkering with equipment. He built golf clubs, and I still have them all over my office. So I learned those things as well. It wasn't just about swinging the golf club. It wasn't about just being a competitor. It was what went into the equipment that you had. As the world changed, as equipment changed, how do you make the good decisions about what you put in your hands?
Yeah, that's one of the questions that I had for you as we continue on, about how technology has changed the sports world in so many ways. I know another one of the topics that you wanted to talk about was women in sports. That whole industry is changed, but women in sports broadcasting. And I recall that, many years ago, women were not allowed in locker rooms. They weren't allowed to interview players. They weren't allowed to do this, that, and the other. And there's been such a change in the industry, but also I feel like technology has had a lot of influence on the game of golf itself, as well as other sports. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think you're seeing more and more women in and around sports, not just in front of the camera, but behind the camera as well. I know at CBS and ESPN, where I came from prior to being at CBS, there are a lot of women that are in very big positions, very responsible, powerful, and crucial positions that are making things happen, whether they're feature producers, whether they are associate directors, whether they are producers, directors, all the way through. We're getting ready to do an all women's We Need to Talk at Augusta National, down from the producer to the AD to the director to everybody that's in front of the camera. I think there is such validity to the women's perspective on golf, women's perspective in sports in general. And now you're seeing that these women can really get it done under the gun when it comes to producing, directing every level of sports.
And that's we have to have a round of applause for that.
No kidding.
Definitely.
No kidding.
And you talk about, and you mentioned Judy Rankin in your book as well, a mentor. And yeah, besides, if you could touch on Judy Rankin and the other women that you had as mentors going into your sports broadcasting career.
Well, Judy started working for ABC Sports the first time I played in the U.S. Women's Open in 1984. Our paths never crossed that week specifically, but our careers definitely had a common denominator that week, because she'd never done live television. She was in the midst of what she calls really a nervous breakdown, because her body was so bad. She was so miserable trying to play golf that she was so anxious around people that she would be around people and nothing would come out. Can you imagine being a broadcaster in your first week of network television and being afraid? The thing that she was most afraid of was that she was going to put that microphone in front of her mouth and nothing would come out. That's terrifying. And it turns out Judy Rankin has become one of the most graceful, knowledgeable people, not in only just women's golf, but all of golf. And she trailblazed for people like me that are now doing the thing that she did so well for so many decades. And we're coming up on what will be her last partial season doing golf television. I know it's a sad time, but she's passed along so many things to me. How about pacing through the week, about knowing that everyone on that team matters. It takes everybody on every level of broadcast to be clicking in order to have a great broadcast. It's really, I don't know, it's a very dysfunctional, functional family unit that travels week after week after week after week. And you see people struggle with things that are going on at home. People aren't well. People have had, families have illnesses, and that affects everybody on tour. But to know that you have a family on the road, the way Judy made everyone feel, is something that she definitely passed along to me. It's important to know that you're supporting the people that are out there among your crew, and vice versa.
And I think you've touched on something that's also really important, especially in this time. You're going on tour and you want to take care of yourself mentally and physically. There's a lot of people suffering with mental health issues. What tips can you share with our audience, because you've had incredible experience, when it comes to mental health and self-care?
Well, for me, pressure is a privilege. And I try to be scheduled and know when the high points are coming. But I also I'm paying attention to the triggers that I know. If I haven't slept well, if I haven't kept up my nutrition, if I'm starting to get anxious about things, I know that the things I need to do to come back to where I can function at my best. And when my brain starts to get there's too much going on and it's too fast, and I feel like I'm not taking that deep breath. I'm not letting my bigger power through my relationship with God run my life, rather than me trying to have hands-on human all the time. I know that's when I need to take a step back and, okay, let's put this in perspective here. We knew this was going to be a tough stretch. You have the tools to get through it. How do we get those tools to activate at their best?
Thank you so much. I love how you pause and reflect, because you have it within you. It's just a matter of keeping the noise and the distractions at bay and getting down to it.
I think so. I think you, again, I think being organized, knowing when the high points are going to come, when you're going to be at your most stress, so that you can be prepared for that.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you're touching on these characteristics, because there's some themes going back to the lessons that Mr. Pulver taught you. There were some themes that ran through the letters. One was about slowing down and being patient.
No, I still can't spell it, but that's good.
Staying in the present moment and always focusing on the positive.
Yeah, and I think if you would add a fourth, it would be preparation. You see in some of the letters he talks about, there's one that's particularly hand scratched, and in the margin he talks about, do you have a good umbrella? Do you have an extra glove? Have you gotten to the first tee in an unhurried manner? Those are the things that you can control, so that when things outside your control start to kind of bombard you, you have that common denominator, that little bit of quiet water that you can rely on.
So if you could share with us, for the listeners and the viewers that really aren't sure about what you do, can you describe what 18 holes of golf is like for a walking lead reporter?
Well, first of all, there's about 8 pounds of equipment around your waist. And the last trip before we go live on the air, we're usually on the grounds with the whole headset all geared up to go about 30 minutes before the show starts. The last trip is always to the girls' room, because it's all real pain to get all that stuff back off and on. So you can make sure, and you basically really pay attention to the input and the output. But you have, I still wear a single headset. I don't wear the dual that's molded. Because I like to have the balance in my feet hear what's going on and be able to talk to players if I do. But I have the producer and sometimes the director in my ear, and everything that I'm hearing from all the announcers. So everything you're hearing on television is in my ear, plus what you're not hearing from the production trailer, the main control room. So it's a busy time. It's a time that if I don't leave the golf course with my brain tired, I haven't really done a great job that day. So it's more a listening job than it is a talking job, because you're trying to put the stories that are being woven through a telecast into some order with what you're looking at and relevance to what you're looking at in the group you're calling. And, and by the way, you're walking and talking at the same time.
That is a true talent, because most people have an issue trying to listen just one-on-one, and you're
Right.
getting all this information that you have to then relay while you're physically moving.
Yeah, and on top of that, this is kind of a new COVID thing. I never used to take a phone or even an iPhone watch onto the golf course with me, because I had a girl or a guy carrying a monitor, so I could watch the live show. So if a shot's on tape, I could talk about it as if it's live or put it in the proper context. Well, because we couldn't have people close to us when we first relaunched back into June of 2020, during the heart of the COVID shutdowns, I had to get an iPhone watch that's my stats and the information that I would be looking for from the truck, so I could get them on my wrist and not have someone so close to me.
Oh my gosh, so you have to be able to read, listen,
Juggle.
talk, walk.
Yes. Just juggling. Yeah.
Incredible.
And you're walking the entire time, correct?
I do. I walk the whole time. I look at it. I had another mentor early in my career. My television career was Tommy Roy, who was the lead producer at NBC Sports. And one of the first things he ever told me was to talk about golf on television. What I want you to do is talk about golf as you saw it as a player, how you saw the game, how you felt about the game, how you felt about the pressure of the situation, how you felt about the weather you were getting ready to face. If it was a shot that you knew was going to be problematic for you, and you know it's going to probably be problematic for another player that you're covering. Talk about golf as you saw it as a player.
So provide that perspective, which makes a lot of sense. It's more authentic.
Yeah, what you're really trying to do from my perspective is give the viewer, who's given up their time, by the way, to spend watching these shows, give them something that they wouldn't otherwise be able to know. If it's a nugget you've dug around for, and you know that that's not something common that people would know, but give them something they wouldn't be able to know. And even if that's something that was shared by a caddy or a player or a coach when you were in a commercial break. Folks at home don't have the ability to really drill down and be able to have that information. That's my job.
That was a great share. Thank you. I'm going to take that to heart as well. We're going to take a quick break and hear from some of our sponsors. So do stay with us. We have much more to talk about with Dottie Pepper, and Annie Bush will be right back after we hear from our sponsors. Thank you.
Ours is a world of wonder. Every day it reminds us of its beauty. It touches us, teaches us, and astounds us. But it also warns us that what we throw away does not go away. That higher temperatures mean a lot more than longer summers. That we can no longer take life as we know it for granted. We are at a unique stage in our history. Never before have we had such an awareness of what we are doing to the planet. And never before have we had the power to do something about that. Take a moment.
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 So I've had the privilege of photographing some incredible people over the years, and during each shoot I've asked the subject to close their eyes and take themselves to a peaceful place just for a few seconds. I've found that this really helps to refresh the energy between the camera and the subject. They had an energy that was quite special and quite different from the rest of the shoot. The collection grew, and now it feels the right time to use it for something good. I think it'd be amazing if we could help to raise awareness and involve people in the discussion about mental health. So what we're asking to do is for everyone to upload their own self-portraits. All of these portraits will become part of a massive artwork. I'm really excited to see this project go from hundreds of pictures to thousands of pictures. Essentially, an ever-evolving artwork that says we're all in this together.
Close your eyes and take a moment.
And he wrote back to you. How did you get in possession of those letters?
Well, I physically saved every letter he wrote to me and put them in a 3-ring binder with the 3-hole punch and the little support circle on them, because they got to be a little tender after a while. But I was given a lot of his golf library when he passed by his family, and I was also given a folder that I was not to really, he never wanted me looking at, he being Mr. Pulver didn't really want me looking at instruction articles or articles on the sports psychology of successful golf. He wanted to be able to teach me in the way he knew I would best learn. And he didn't want me getting caught up in mechanics and technique. But he was, as I mentioned earlier in the show, very curious. And part of his curiosity were the articles that he pulled out of magazines and underscored and wrote his comments in all of the margins. And he kept them. And what he also kept in that same beat up little folder were all the letters that I wrote to him. And I discovered that folder as I started this project in late March of 2020, when the world was in a big lockdown. So I thought I had a pretty neat book idea, and then it turned into a gusher. And it was, talk about a moment with a lot of tears. It put a whole new twist on the full circle nature of this relationship, and how I needed to tell people who George Pulver was and how much he meant to me, not just as a teacher, but as a human being that had so much to give.
What a beautiful tribute. And Dottie, something else that I think our audience really needs to take away from this is there is something special about a handwritten letter. And I know I don't do enough of it myself. And when you have something from someone, it's sacred and you can hold on to it forever, as you mentioned.
It's so different than taking a file and putting it in an email file, and taking an email and putting it in a file that says personal or letters or whatever it is. You have it forever. And I still think there's something great about having a great pen in your hand, about having really cool stationery, even if it's just a hard card that looks like a postcard that you can slide in and someone actually gets a piece of mail in their post box. The magical part of the end of this book was that there was a letter that was written by George Jr. that never made it to me when I was at Furman University. And I got that letter as I was going across town to voice the trailer for this book. We did a video trailer of 2.5 minutes. And I'd never read that letter. I never had any idea that letter had been written. And it was a copy that Madeline, the middle child, had from her brother who had passed. And she said, as she was continuing to go through her folders and her files at home, cleaning things out and helping me to put this book together, she said, I need to send this to her. And it got to me the day that we had come up with the 208 pages that rolls off an American printing press in the purest form. And we had to find a way to get 2 more pages in there. It had to be in there because it really put the exclamation point on what the relationship meant to their dad and how I was still a part of their family 40 some years later.
So beautiful. How many lives it's touched?
Yeah, and continues to. I've developed relationships with his grandchildren as a result of the book. And they said to me, this is so great because we didn't know who our grandfather was. We were munchkins and, 7, 8 years old and going for Thanksgiving and Christmas, but we never really knew our grandfather until we had this book in our hands.
And Dottie, if you would tell our audience about the Audible copy of the book that's available.
Yeah, so it runs just under 6 hours, and it's now it's been widely distributed places like Apple Books, Barnes and Noble, Google Play, audiobooks.com, and Kobo Books, and we're waiting for Amazon and Audible, their arm for audiobooks and podcasts, to hit over these next couple of weeks. So it's widely distributed, and I was my own voice and had 2 other gentlemen help me along the way. It was something we were really proud of because I also produced it right here in Saratoga Springs, New York. So it was organic at the same time.
Well, congratulations. And I know you're going to read a little from your book to us, but before you do, we talked about the challenges of doing an Audible book. And what was that like for you and what kept you going?
I could feel him talking to me again when we were going through the whole process of reading the letters, because I read all the letters that I wrote to him, or everything that I was going through. And we had a gentleman in Pittsburgh who to me sounded very much like Mr. Pulver read him. So it was like I was having a conversation with him again. But the difficult part to me was you're in the sound booth and your brain starts to get scrambled after talking for a couple of hours and reading, because it has to be perfect. When they go back through to edit an audio book, everything that's in the book itself needs to be in its proper order, and the pacing and the inflection. It was a lot heavier lifting than I thought it was going to be.
And you said it's available now on many platforms. So we're encouraging everyone, go out and get Dottie's book.
Thank you. It's been a great journey.
And can you just touch on what was in that last letter?
Well, the last letter was the concern that the kids had about him post Martha's death, just really having a purpose, because he was always so busy, whether it was at the golf course or just things that they would do on a regular basis. And George Jr. talks about his mind going back to the 4 years to my mother's demise, and I see a painful shell of a man confused, beside himself with grief, and all of a sudden his world was turned upside down, and along comes this kid who is desperate for help, and we really helped each other.
Yes, and that's that bi-directional benefit that
right.
That we talk about from a societal standpoint, the passing on of the wisdom but then you filling that void.
Yeah, and that's actually continued as well, because I still have, as I mentioned, the relationship with his children. So the oldest is 91 years old, and she texts me, and so this is still very much going on.
That's beautiful.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dottie, a question I have for you. People across the world have all kinds of experience, and many people are just remiss to share that with others, to mentor someone, and yet it could change a person's life. So what advice or direction can you give to people who are just kind of like, I don't think I want to do it?
I don't know anybody who's asked for help that's had a response from a mentor that said no. And the more I have in my position at CBS, I was assigned an intern. I wasn't even with the company 6 months, and it's been, like you said, it's bi-directional. I've benefited from it, and I think she has as well. It keeps the mentor young, and it keeps the mentee. I think avoiding. You're not a lawnmower parent, but you're trying to help them not step maybe in the deepest of potholes that you did. So I think that's sort of their gift to you. And I think that was Mr. Pulver's gift to me. I mean, he couldn't hit a golf shot for me, but he could make the preparation of being ready to be prepared to play professional golf, to go to college, to look beyond what the dreams of playing professional golf might be to the realities of it. He made that easier for me, but he certainly didn't hit the golf shot.
Yeah, I'm laughing because Annie and I were talking right before the show about our golf game, and the only person who'll golf with me is my brother-in-law, and I keep moving the tee across the fairway as I'm hitting. It's no one else. It's not really golfing.
All you have to do is keep your hands on the golf club and play quickly. Nobody's keeping score. Nobody's keeping score.
And there's no pictures on the scorecard.
Not that either.
And I was telling Dr. Jacqueline before we started, because she asked me if I played golf. And I come from a golfing family, and my dad we had those father-daughter moments, and he would take me to the driving range, right, with a 9-iron. So I only learned how to golf with a 9-iron.
Well, that's not so bad. I mean, think about Seve Ballesteros, World Golf Hall of Fame member, major championships. I think it was a 5-iron on the beaches of Pedreña. It might have been a 3-iron in Spain. He learned how to hit every shot with a 3-iron. So you had a great advantage, even over Seve.
You didn't realize it, Annie.
I know. It can make that par 5 a little long, but other than that.
That's true. But you're not supposed to be keeping score, so there you go.
And Dottie, I read an article, 20 things that people probably don't know about you. And I thought that was really insightful, because we see you as the pro and as the broadcaster, but yet you're a person, right? You've got a dog there.
Yeah. He's finally asleep.
Yeah. We'll try to keep it down.
Yeah.
So can you share some of your passions when you're not working?
Well, we ended up with, I've always, when I played the tour, I always traveled with at least one dog, and we had about 6.5 years where I didn't have a dog, and it was not good. I mean, life got there was a lot of international travel involved when I was working for ESPN, but having him back in our life now is amazing. He's a miniature German Schnauzer by the name of Rupert. But I love to cook, and my gardens are my passion. When I come home, my week is kind of weird. I typically come home on a Monday from being on the road with CBS, and I have Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at home. You can find me doing laundry on Tuesday morning and the garden on Wednesday and Thursday. And Thursday afternoon, I sort of hit the reset button and start watching shows and taking in stats. But my garden time is Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and I'm really I'm into it big time. A lot of perennials, and expanding the garden, and did a big split and divide last fall. So I'm anxious as spring is starting to come to see how well I did.
Thank you for sharing that. And Annie, we had a guest on who talked about the blue zones, and I believe one of the attributes across people who live to be more than 100 is to do things outside that are really rewarding. And I'm not a gardener per se, because I'm afraid of worms. Sorry, but
worms are good. That means you've got good oxygen going through your soil. We want them.
Well, there's a lot of grounding that occurs when you get your hands in the dirt.
Yes.
And that's what made us healthy as kids, is we got in the dirt.
I have friends at home at work will say, "Oh, Dot's getting a little stressed out. She needs to go get her hands dirty." It's true.
Yeah,
It's true.
absolutely.
Well, thank you for sharing that personal insight of what you do and your schedule. That was really interesting to hear. So I know that you've got a busy time coming up for you. What would you like to leave our audience with today as we close out the show?
Well, Annie wanted me to read a little bit from the bottom of the last 3 paragraphs of the introduction, and I think it really sums up why I did this project and my hopes for people going, should they read it. And it's really that Mr. Pulver's knowledge needs to be shared because, as I mentioned earlier, it's timeless and has so many applications, not just in sports, but in education, business, in finding some balance in a world that sometimes seems to be spinning out of control. That's where we are right now, isn't it? Mm-hmm. My hope is that you have been blessed by a person in your life as special as Mr. Pulver was in mine. Or if not, that person awaits you. Or maybe you can be a Mr. Pulver for some youngster with his or her own big dreams and ambitions. So if I was doing the audiobook, I would have had to start that whole last paragraph over.
That is perfection.
But it really is. It was. I've recently heard it class. It's not pay it forward. It's care it forward, and that's what he did. He cared. Wow. He cared about not just the game of golf, not just this young kid who had her eyes in the stars, but everything he knew that it would take to be a complete person. And I think that's the advantage of having this two-way street with somebody who, in my situation, was 14 years old and Mr. Pulver was 81.
And he was still able to help lift you up to reach those stars.
Very, very much so. And still does. The lessons that he put in those letters and his kids continue to reinforce through the relationship are still very much a part of what I do all the time.
Oh.
I think another beautiful takeaway is that in certain cultures, older people are revered and respected. And in some cultures, they're not. It's like, oh, they don't know what they're talking about. Let's lock them in the room. We'll see them after dinner. But here you had this beautiful relationship. And now you've shared that it's gone on to generation and generation. And that is it just touches my heart.
I think it would make him very happy.
Yes.
And also embarrassed too, because the girls talked about it when they kind of gave me the green light to do this project. He said, Dad would be so embarrassed. And I said, well, that's exactly what we're going to do then.
And the other part of this, though, in just your golf community, it's going to help encourage more of these mentorship relationships. I mean, I grew up, watching Nicholas and all those guys, and then looking at the young guys playing now. And I think golf almost naturally lends itself to those kinds of relationships.
I think and we see that you will see it in a couple of weeks at the Masters, because even the players who don't play in the tournament itself are out there. Players who have won Masters tournaments, they're out there, and the younger players are asking them for their input on the golf course. What do you remember about this? What are the tendencies here? When the weather blows out of this direction, what happens to the golf course? And it's one of those tournaments that sets it apart because the mentorship is such a big part of the week. The Champions Dinner on Tuesday night, about all of the things that they revere history for, and it's passing along those things that Mr. Pulver did to me, just in his own different way on a smaller scale.
Mm.
Dottie, a final question I have for you, sort of a mentorship, if you will, as we're live, is you have extensive experience with network television, and we're on streaming right now. Where do you see the future going? Are people going to go from one to the other, or do they both have a place?
I think they both have a place because people are so mobile. I know I went to get my nails done earlier today. And I was streaming the PGA Tour coverage because it's my job to stay up on what's going on. I watch it both. I'm an appointment television primarily by the time the tournament wiggles down to a Saturday and Sunday afternoon. But staying up on it, you got to be on the move. And I think streaming is very much a part of what we're going to be doing for a very long time and in a big sort of way.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. I can sleep tonight. No.
No, I remember being on the PGA board. This was probably 7 or 8 years ago, and the president saying that he was watching his children start to watch more and more on this. I'm thinking, I know my eyes aren't great. That's going to be a real challenge. But here we are. Can't get around it. And everybody, it's demand. And now there's a supply.
Yeah, that's true. And we also have devices like YouTube can be on a big screen television.
Absolutely.
So, wow. Thank you so much for being here. I'd love to stay with another show because I'm sure we could just chat with you the rest of the afternoon, but I appreciate your time. Thank you, Annie, for bringing Dottie here. And Dottie, thank you for being so open and just enlightening all of us. And you're a wonderful person.
No, well, thank you for having me. And I hope that the letters will resonate.
And it's funny because I highlighted the life lessons. And my husband's like, so I just need to read the highlights. And I'm like, no, you get the golf lessons.
Yeah, you go everywhere else.
Right. I read all the life stuff. I said, you'll have to read all the other golf stuff.
That's fantastic.
And interesting enough, it's still applicable today. All those the golf lessons are still applicable.
They are.
He'll have to get a different color highlighter.
Love it.
We look forward to hearing you and see. Well, we don't really see you much, but we'll hear you Sunday afternoons.
Yeah, the good thing is if you see me too much, I haven't done my job either because I like to be like Casper, the friendly ghost.
We catch you every once in a while.
Every once in a while.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Dottie, we have had your contact information up, but for people who are listening on the radio, how would you like people to reach out to you and who should contact you? We know how busy you are. So who would you like to reach out?
Everything goes to my website, dottiepepper.net, and there is a spot there to put an email in, and it goes to letters to a future champion at Gmail. It's not on the website, but that's where it goes. So if you can remember all that, otherwise you can just go to my website and hit contact Dottie.
All right. Thank you so much for making it easy for people to reach out to you. Thank
you.
We wish you continued success and hope that you come and see us again sometime.
Thanks. Would love to.
And see you at the Masters.
Got it.
Woohoo, Augusta, here we come.
Bye, Dottie. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much, Annie. What a wonderful person. She's so down to earth and real and just a role model for all of us, whether you're broadcasting, whether you're playing golf, whether you are looking for a mentor. She is the real deal.
Well, see, and I was talking to a client today who's in her 70s and trying to motivate her because she has so many gifts and encourage her to become a mentor, to volunteer. You know, that's what Loving Longevity is reaching out and sharing those gifts that we all still have. You know, they don't do us any good all bottled up in here, you know, as far as a societal benefit from our knowledge. And, you know, there is that relationship benefit when you can touch someone else's life and make it better.
And that lasts a lifetime.
It does. It really does.
Annie, what's the best way for people to reach you and share a little bit about this, your information about the activation patches?
If anybody, you know, as a longevity strategist, what I can help is take a look at your lifestyle, you know, your eating, your exercise, your sleep habits, your hydration, and really pinpoint where we can tweak for you to add healthy years to your life. So that means getting optimally healthy now and staying that way for as long as you can. And since I really believe in holistic treatments and using the body to heal itself, that's why I am such an advocate of the stem cell patches, because they work on the same premise as when light hits your skin outside, when sunlight hits your skin and your skin creates the vitamin D. There is light within these patches. There's crystals within these patches. And when your body heat hits them, light reflects back into your body, and it works like acupuncture. That light goes down those pathways, those meridians, and they heal their body. And if you want to learn more, because I know we're running out of time, just call me or text me 941-468-7091. That's 941-468-7091. If you want to learn more about the patches themselves, it's www.lifewave.com/timeless aging.
Well done. Thank you, Annie.
And thank you, Dr. JACALYN, as always, for having this platform for all of us share all this really good feeling stuff.
It's my pleasure. I say this every Friday, but I have this notepad right here. I write everything down, all the takeaways, and I can't believe the people from around the world and everything that we learn on this platform. It's, I don't know, it's just a gift. So I thank you, God, and thank you to the team and all of our guests.
All right. Thank you again. And you have a fabulous rest of your weekend.
Thank you. You too. Thanks, Annie. Thanks, Dottie. Bye. All right, folks, our last show is coming up. It's presenting Pet Psychic Amina. As of April, I have to think about that, we have 21 shows. Our newest show is the Talking Heads panel. So Talking Heads are our expert presentation team. We have 5 of our Talking Heads who are going to meet with me, and we are going to have a topic that is given to each of them 5 minutes before the show starts. So it'll be totally authentic and it'll be a lot of fun. So do join us. That starts April the 12th. All right, we're going to sign off now. You stay where you are. I'm going to run over to the other theater. Oh my God, theater. I've been working too long today. To the other studio and meet Pet Psychic Amina. Thanks again. Take care. We'll see you soon.